lot of things going on. We got a guest here who's going to join us right now.
Stephen Bowers.
We have Stephen Bowers. Come on in here, Mr. Bowers. You're going to have to pull your seat way over here.
Okay.
Don't be afraid of Sack and Fox now. I know we're pretty mean. You're going to have to sit a little bit further back.
Right, I know.
Right there.
All right.
Yeah, so let me first of all just tell you a little bit about what's going on with our webcast here. We're streaming live out to our new viewers, and we thought what better place than to start than at the National Congress of American Indians, and we have Stephen Bowers with us. And go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, my name is Stephen Bowers, and I'm Seminole Indian, Seminole Tribe of Florida, and I'm a Vietnam vet. I served with the 173rd Airborne Brigade. Back home, my other job is the Florida liaison for the Florida Governor's Council on Indian Affairs. And we have two federally recognized tribes in Florida. We have a board made up of the Mckosato tribe of Indians of Florida, which is the other tribe, and of course our tribe, the Seminole tribe of Florida. And we also have other non-Indian people that's on our board. And what we do is to try to establish a very good working relationship with our governor of the state of Florida.
And who's the governor now?
The governor now is Rick Scott.
Okay.
And there's an election coming up in November. The challenger against Mr. Scott, Governor Scott, is Charlie Chris, who is a good friend of the Seminole tribe.
That's right. Now he was governor before.
Right.
Right.
He was governor before when we were able. He was the first governor that actually sat down at the table with us to negotiate our compact with the gaming, to have our gaming. So, like I said, he's a very good friend, and he's an advocate for Indian people, Indian veterans, and we hope he can get back in.
Okay.
But I'm here mainly at the NCAI to talk about the Honoring First American Veterans campaign of the Education Center at the Vietnam Wall. Now, this is a center that has been approved by Congress, and the site of the property where the Education Center will be built at, it hasn't been built. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, which is the organization we're working with to raise funds for the building. The campaign is called Build the Center, and it's going to be an education center that's devoted mainly toward the Vietnam veterans, and we are here to promote an opportunity to Indian tribes and the Indian tribal veterans to have their legacy, their historic veteran legacy, to the whole world. It's an opportunity where this building is going to be built underground. We are helping the Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund raise funds, not only to promote our Indian legacy, but also to have the rest of the world know about the Sack and Fox veterans and how you participated in the various wars that the United States was involved in. My tribe only had 2 veterans that served in World War II, but it's an opportunity for tribes that have served since World War I to showcase their history. There's been a memorial, our American Indian, Alaskan Native Memorial, approved by Congress in 2013, which took a long time to approve. But that memorial will be put at the undergrounds of the National Museum of the American Indian, which is on the eastern end of the National Mall.
Right.
And for those of your listeners and watching, the National Mall is the area between the U.S. Capitol all the way down to the Lincoln Memorial.
It's where Forrest Gump and Ginny met when they ran across the water.
Ginny! Right, that whole scene. But I think this is going to be the most opportune time. You know, a lot of times when things happen in Washington, D.C., Indian people find out after the fact, you know, after it's done. Just like the 3 servicemen memorial. There's no Indian. That's the reason why we started on this campaign, because you have the white guy represented, the African American represented, the Hispanic. That's the 3 servicemen statue that stands in front of the Vietnam Wall. Right. So a lot of my tribal veterans said, "What? There's no Indian." You know. So in 2010, I got approved by the tribal council to go ahead and start a campaign to have a statue built. But little did we know that in 2003, Congress had passed a law saying no more statues, no more memorials anywhere near the Vietnam Wall. They wanted like they call it America's front yard, you know. So they didn't want it cluttered up with a whole bunch of statues, because there were other organizations like the Helicopter Pilots Association of Vietnam, the Scout Dogs, and these other organizations were trying to get a statue dedicated to their cause. But like I said, 2003, Congress said no more statues. So now we are working on this education center of the Vietnam Wall, which I stated it's going to be the most opportune time for Indian tribes and Indian tribal veterans to showcase their own history. I mean, some tribes go all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Some tribes
That's right,
go,
the Delaware, we're right there.
right.
Yeah.
And some tribes go back to the
400 years.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
that's going to be a lot of history to try to put in this education center. Sure. But we're relying on Indian tribes to submit their own history to us, so that we're working with VVMF, Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund, to accomplish this whole effort.
Yeah, and something that I find interesting, that first of all, what you said about the 2003 bill, they couldn't make an exception.
No.
Because they still think of Native Americans as, instead of a unique culture within a group, like the nurses or something like that.
Right, the nurses memorial.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But okay, but the other thing that I really wanted to stress here was that I think most people don't realize that Native Americans in Vietnam, that what I'm told is that a lot of times they would be
the point man.
Right. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Without really getting into an emotional type scene here,
right.
I mean, of course, every Vietnam, American Indian, Native, Vietnam veteran, Alaskan Native, knows if you're a Vietnam vet, they always call you Chief. I mean, no matter what your name was, it was Chief. I mean, from the time I got in country, they said Chief. I mean, there I am. My name is Stephen Bowers, but instead of usually call each other in training and boot camp and
by your last name.
By your last name. Hey Bowers, do this, or hey Bowers, do that. But in Vietnam, it was hey Chief, take point. I mean, that was like, they didn't know any other word. They didn't say hey Jones, a white guy that might be in the squad or a platoon. They say Chief. Of course, the reason is that we were, expendable. For some reason, they thought the point man, being the chief, we could hear better at night. We could see.
We could see in the dark.
Yeah, we could see in the dark. We could see movement. Even in daylight, we could see better than the white guy. So, of course, they called us chief. So, I mean, this goes back to when the scouts were for Custer, and they had other scouts for other cavalry units. They were the ones that were out front. But in Vietnam, I mean, I don't know. I've heard buku stories. I mean, many stories about how one Indian guy who was always picked to be point, and the odds kind of go against the Indian after a while. I mean, they go against the point man. So eventually, you're getting shot.
And then too, somebody told me a story that they were the point man. I can't remember. I've interviewed so many people, but I remember hearing a story from a native who was on point, came across some Viet Cong, and for a second they just looked at each other, because he said they were astonished, because they were like, what are you doing with those guys?
Because we looked alike, right?
The VC, yeah. So anyway, and then the other thing I wanted to just mention was that a lot of people don't know this, but the Oliver Stone movie,
right?
Platoon. The one of the captain, or the two main characters. One was Willem Dafoe, and one was Tom Berenger.
And then the other one was Charlie Sheen.
That was the first character. But the other two guys,
right? Tom Berenger,
the platoon leaders,
right?
I can't remember their names, but the one played by Willem Dafoe.
Barnes was
one,
right?
And then, but the Willem Dafoe character, what I heard through the grapevine, was that was supposed to be a Native American. Had you ever heard that?
No, I had never heard that.
Yeah, he was supposed to, but I don't know if Wes was that big time yet. Wes Studi was big enough at the time, but they said they couldn't find an accomplished actor to really.
Yeah, you have to have a name actor these days.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well, how do you get your name out there unless you're in a movie?
Yeah.
Right?
So at the time, they passed on that being a native character.
Right.
So, how do people find out more information about?
They can go to aivmi.org, or the other. We're not highlighted in their website yet, but as far as the fundraising for the Education Center, they can go to vvmf.org, which stands for Vietnam Veteran Memorial Fund, vvmf.org, and they're the same organization that helped build the wall. Jan Scruggs, who is the founder and president of the VVMF, he's the one that went to Congress and lobbied Congress for about 3 to 4 years, was able to get the property where the wall is now, and also led the campaign to raise the money for the wall, which, you know, now it had to go through a whole contest, a series of contests to see what that memorial or what that dedication to the Vietnam War was going to be like. So he had to have a contest. That's why now the memorial at the National Museum of the American Indian, that will be up to Kevin Gover to honcho and direct
and his board,
and his board to have a contest. But one thing that's unique about this situation is that I don't have to go pass a law. I don't have to do any engineering drawings. All of that's already been done. All we have to do is provide the information about our American Indian, Alaskan Native, veteran history, legacy. I mean, this is our time to go ahead and be put on the National Mall. Everybody knows, every Indian knows, if you've been up there, there's nothing about the Indian. I don't care if it's about veterans, I don't care if it's about statesmen, I don't care if it's about leaders, there's nothing. This is our opportunity for tribal councils to even be interviewed by someone like you, maybe, that can go ahead and say, well, I served in Vietnam, and I'm proud to dedicate or produce this DVD about the Osage or the Cherokee or the Muskogee Creek. All of these other tribes have a very rich history. The Oneida, I was able to visit with the Oneida youth and to the Oneida veterans in Wisconsin. And they have a very, very rich history. It goes back to Bunker Hill. I mean, that's history that's just sitting there in Wisconsin. But if you can bring that history to the Washington, D.C., to, I call it the heartbeat of the country. I mean, that's where laws are made, laws are passed. We have a chance to showcase our history. And just, they estimate that the Lincoln Memorial is visited by 6.5 million people per year. Now they estimate that this education center will be visited by at least 4.5 million people per year. Now, I don't know how many people go to the National Museum of American Indian, but I know people come to the Lincoln Memorial and to the wall, they have to go through the education center. And this is our chance and our opportunity, our window of opportunity. You know, like I said, a lot of times we find out about things after the fact, and it's too late for us to do something. But now we're getting on the ground floor. They hope to break ground on this education center by the beginning of 2018 or the end of 2017. So Indian tribes and Indian tribal casinos, I mean, I have to say, have a chance to contribute to the building of this center. And at the same time, Indian tribal councils throughout the country have a chance to submit their own very vital, rich veteran history, their legacy.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know, there's so many different tribes. And,
oh yeah.
And there's always a little tug of war too within tribes when that happens.
Well, see, they'll be able to submit their own.
Yeah.
See, their own story. I mean, I'm not that one to say. I'm not going to be the one to say, no, you can't be here because your people didn't serve enough. That's not my role, and that's not Jan Scruggs' role. Our role is to help educate people. People visit from all over the world. That's not U.S. people that visit the National Mall. People from China, people from Japan, Germany, all over the world visit that area. So this is our chance to show off our history.
That's right. Okay. All right, Stephen Bowers.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for the time.
Sure.
It took
We appreciate
400
you coming
years
by.
to get Pope Pay.